Government officials insist that this is an isolated incident. Who don't perhaps we will continue to inform this story unfolds. That's part of it.
There is a line from an Israeli intelligence memorandum. June 1st, 1948. The order is to introduce bacteria into the wells of the villages. That is not a quote from an enemy. That is not propaganda. That is from Israel's own archives, found by Israeli historians, published in a peer-reviewed journal. And the man who signed off on poisoning the water was the first prime minister of the State of Israel, David Ben-Gurion. So before we talk about anything, I want you to sit in that for a second. The drinking water of villages, of people walking home. That's where we're starting. And I'm sorry to tell you, it's all downhill from there. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dancing Toaster. Today I am not my chipper self. Today is going to be an episode of Toaster Talk, which means I'm stepping out from behind the dancing toaster, from behind the man-eating toaster, out from behind the haunted houses and the true crime, and I'm just going to talk to you. Mind to mind, heart to heart. If you are new, that is what these are. There's no bit, no format, just me telling you what's sitting on my chest, and what is sitting on my chest is the Liberty episode. Last week on the Man-Eating Toaster, I covered the USS Liberty. 34 American sailors were killed by our so-called greatest ally, and I built that one very carefully. I tried to separate what is documented from what is disputed. I tried to make it survive a hostile read. Most loved it. For those, I am grateful. But a few took issue and chose to deflect and tried to defend it anyway, to explain it away. Coping and seething, trying to blame LBJ or simply trying not to blame the obvious guilty party. Well, today's my response. And it's a lengthy one, so buckle up. I'm going to lay the whole ledger on the table, not the Liberty, the bigger book, the crimes against the people who actually live under this and have for almost 80 years. I'm going to be careful because careful is what makes it land. I'm not going to give you a single thing that cannot be backed. This is not an episode about a people. Let me say that plainly up front because it matters and because the people who do not want you to hear this will pretend I said the opposite. This is about a state. It's about a government. A military, a court system that keeps finding its own soldiers innocent. It's about a political class, an ideology, and it's about us. Because, friends, we are bankrolling it. If I have not made it clearer in the last 3 months, this is my formal goodbye to Zionism. Not a goodbye to anyone's grandmother, not a goodbye to a faith, or again a people. A goodbye to the idea that a state can do some of the most atrocious things ever and call any objection a slur. Let us go straight to the ledger. We're going in order today. There will be no plugs, no petitions, no e-begging today, just more things that have been pounding through my chest. We'll start with our intro, the wells during the Nakba. Now, some know that term, many do not. The Nakba will get its own episode to be sure, but all you need to know now is the Nakba was the violent displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinian civilians from their homes. In April of 1948, during said Nakba, Zionist forces ran a covert operation with a name bastardized from the Bible. They called it Cast Thy Bread. Ripped from Ecclesiastes, cast your bread upon the waters. What it actually meant was this. Operatives carried typhoid culture into Palestinian villages and put it in their drinking wells. The wells of the towns that the refugees had just been forcefully pushed out of, so that anyone who came back would get terribly sick. For decades, this was but a rumor. People who survived it talked about it and were told they were lying, just like the USS Liberty. But then the documents came out, and here's the part I need you to hold on to the tightest because it is what makes this undismissible. The people who proved it happened are Israeli. Historians Benny Morris and Benjamin Kadar. Working from declassified files in the Israel State Archive, published in the journal Middle Eastern Studies, Morris was not some activist. Morris had spent his career documenting this period from the inside, and what he and Kadar found was the order, the field reports, the chain of command, all the way up to Ben Gurion, up to the Army's chief of staff. There was a typhoid outbreak in Acre that spring. The mayor recorded the distress. And there's more. 4 Israeli operatives disguised as Arabs tried to poison the water in Gaza. The Egyptians caught them and executed them by military court. They even discussed taking it further into the wells of Cairo and Beirut. Thankfully, they were unsuccessful, not because they came to their senses, but because the war ended first. Poisoning the water of civilians is a war crime, no matter how you slice it. It is a violation of the Geneva Protocol of 1925. It is one of the oldest lines in modern warfare, and Israel crossed it in the first month. Now some will try and tell you the law came later, or they didn't sign the treaty yet. Please shut up. Spare me. Poisoning a well was not legal in 1948. It was one of the oldest crimes in the laws of war. The Lieber Code banned it in 1863, the Hague Conventions banned it in 1907, and in 1946, 2 years before Israel poisoned these wells, the judges at Nuremberg ruled that those Hague rules were already binding on every civilized nation on earth, signed or not. So the line about Israel not having joined the treaty yet does not save anyone, so again, spare me. Customary law does not ask whether you signed, it asks whether you knew, and everyone knew. Poisoning the water of civilians was a war crime in 1863, it was a war crime in 1907, it was a war crime at Nuremberg, and it was a war crime in April of 1948. Now, let's stay in 1948 and talk about Deir Yassin. Same month, same war. A small village just west of Jerusalem called Deir Yassin. The village had signed a non-aggression pact. No fighters, there was no shooting. They were keeping to the pact. But Zionist paramilitaries attacked anyway with guns and grenades and an armored car and killed somewhere over 100 people. Women, children, old men. I'm not going to dramatize this, I don't have to. I'm going to let an Israeli officer do it. One who objected before it even happened and described it for us after. Before, he asked his commander how he could possibly authorize an attack on a village that had kept the pact faithfully. After, he described walking into the houses and finding the dead in the corners. Old people, children, women, a few men stood up and shot. Survivors were paraded through Jerusalem. There's more, and some of it is contested and worse detail specific, so I will not push past what the historians will sign their names to. What is not contested is the scale, the helplessness of the dead, and the effect. The effect was arguably the whole point. Benny Morris, once again the Israeli historian, says Deir Yassin probably did more than any single event of that war to make Palestinian villagers flee. It was terror. And it worked. It emptied the land. The IDF's own archive material on Deir Yassin is, to this day, classified. Let's keep going. Same year, same nightmare, 1948, the Lydda Death March. It was July, the towns of Lydda and Ramla. The attack on Lydda was led by Moshe Dayan. And I want to stop on that name because you have seen this man, even if you don't know it. It's the eye patch that gives it away. The black patch over the left eye. He lost the eye in 1941, and from then on it was his trademark. He is one of the most photographed soldiers of the 20th century. If you can picture the face of a single Israeli general, it almost certainly is his. This is not some forgotten lieutenant. This is the man who would go on to run the entire Israeli army as chief of staff. The defense minister in 1967, the face of the Six-Day War. The general the Western press put on its magazine covers and called a hero. Defense minister again in 1973. It goes on and on. Foreign minister after that, sitting at Camp David helping negotiate the peace with Egypt. A living legend in his country. The single most recognizable soldier Israel ever produced. Now put that man in July of 1948. He is sitting in a column of armored jeeps driving into the city of Lydda. Machine guns firing into the streets. There was an American correspondent there to see it. To spill the beans, Kenneth Bilby of the New York Herald Tribune. He described the column racing in with everything blazing, firing at everything that moved, and the bodies of men, women, and children left where they fell. A soldier put an anti-tank round into a mosque where people had taken shelter. Estimates of the dead in Lydda run from 250 to 450. Then came the expulsion. Around 60,000 people from both towns ordered out, stripped of their valuables first, of course, and marched roughly 15 miles in the July heat with no water. More people died on that road. Children, the elderly, the counts run further into the hundreds. The expulsion order was signed by Yitzhak Rabin, then the IDF's chief of operations. He became Prime Minister of Israel, twice even, and later a Nobel Peace Prize. Sit with that for a second. I heard it put this way a few weeks ago. Imagine a man who signs an order that forces 60,000 people from their homes at gunpoint and kills children on the road doing it, and then imagine that same man rising to become president of the US. Not once, but twice, and then collecting a Nobel Peace Prize on the way out. In this country, that would be unthinkable. Well, maybe at one point it was, but it would be the scandal of the century. But there, it was a career. 2 men, one drove the column, one signed the march. Neither was punished, neither was buried. One was put on magazine covers and called a hero, the other handed a Nobel Peace Prize. The road out of Lydda did not cost Dayan or Rabin anything. It built them both. It ran straight to the top of the army, straight into the cabinet, and straight into the history books. And not once in any of it did anyone make either of them answer for the street. Notice this dark pattern because you're gonna see it again and again today. Jump ahead almost a decade, October 29th, 1956. An Arab village east of Tel Aviv called Kafir Qasim. Border police imposed a new curfew that evening, 6 p.m. Anyone outside after 6 was to be shot. The problem, and they knew it was a problem, is that the laborers were already out in the fields. They left before the curfew even existed. They had no way of knowing. So as they came home that evening, in group after group, the police shot them down. Not once, not twice, but 9 separate events across the evening. Around 49 people killed. Most of them were not men of fighting age. The largest group of the dead was children. Another pattern you'll notice. I need you to feel the timeline again. 9 separate killing events spread across hours, which means there was time after the first to stop, to realize what the hell they were doing, what was happening, to say enough. Nobody did. They kept killing into the night. What followed was a rare occurrence. They were actually tried. even rightly convicted of murder. But here's the part that is not rare at all, the part that is the spine of this entire episode, if you can make it through. Every sentence was cut or pardoned. 17-year sentences became a year or two. The commander of this atrocity walked entirely. And as recently as 2021, the Knesset voted down a measure to formally recognize the massacre by the state. They voted it down, so even the memory is contested by the government that did it. Sounds like the Liberty, doesn't it? Fast forward a little further, I told you we'd be going in order today. This time, 1982, Israel invades Lebanon. That headline sounds like one from this year, doesn't it? But no, sadly, they've done this many times. Make no mistake, they're currently adding to their atrocities, but we'll save their current ones in Lebanon for a future episode. Their defense minister running that previous invasion was Ariel Sharon. Israeli forces besiege and bombard West Beirut. A ceasefire is brokered with the Reagan administration involved. The PLO agrees to leave Lebanon, and there is a written American assurance that the Palestinian civilians left behind in the refugee camps will be protected. The fighters leave, the families stay, on a promise. Then the Lebanese president-elect was assassinated by a member of the Syrian Socialist Nationalist Party, not the PLO, not the refugees in the camps, but Israel blamed the Palestinians anyway, with no evidence, and used it as the reason to move into West Beirut and surround Sabra, a refugee camp, and Shatila, the neighborhood beside it. Then they sent in an allied militia. And for roughly 48 hours, that militia tortured and murdered unarmed people. There's rape, mutilation, executions, men, women, children, the elderly. Most of the bodies went into mass graves, which is why there is no clean number. Estimates run as high as 3,500 dead in 2 days. Some argue Israeli soldiers did not personally carry out the killings inside the camp. Even if that's the case, here is what we know they did do. They surrounded it and sealed off the exits so no one could escape. They lit the night sky with flares so the militia could see to work. And afterwards they provided bulldozers to bury the dead. Israel's own Kahan Commission found Sharon personally responsible. He was removed as defense minister. I know, shocking, right? Accountability? No. Nope, no way. It was about 5 minutes worth of accountability in the scheme of things, because he stayed in the cabinet, still held office after office, and eventually became Prime Minister of Israel. There's our pattern again. Found responsible for a massacre, promoted to the top of the country. Here's a warning about the next one. This one gutted me. This one is the killing of a 13-year-old girl. Iman Al-Hams. October 5th, 2004. Walking to school in Rafah with her backpack near an IDF outpost, she got shot. There was no reason. She was a child going to school. It gets worse, though. She went down wounded, about 70 meters from the post, still not a threat to anyone. Then an Israeli officer walked out to her, not to give her aid, but to shoot her twice in the head at close range. Then the monster walked off. But it gets worse. I wish I could say it was a demon, but it was very much a man, and this sick man came back. He switched his rifle to automatic and emptied the magazine into her body. All of it caught on the outpost camera. It took the army more than an hour to let medics reach her. The examination found 15 to 17 rounds in the little girl's body. The sad excuse for a human, the garbage soldier claimed, "Oh, we thought she had a bomb." But the radio recordings, which came out in court, proved they were lying through their teeth. On the tape, they describe her accurately, a girl of about 10, scared to death, before they fill her with bullets. The Army's first review found no ethical failure. There was a rightful outcry, so they tried the sick officer. In court, the monster doubled down and he said he would have done it if she were 3 years old. I know what you're thinking, but at least he was tried, right? Well, again, notice the patterns. An evil, sick government investigated itself to see if it was evil and sick. How do you think that went? He was acquitted on every count. Reported afterwards to have been, you guessed it, promoted. Not only that, he was also compensated by the Army for his trouble. You can't make this crap up. Acquitted, promoted, and then paid? If you want to know why people stop believing the system will ever deliver an ounce of accountability, it is sitting right there in that one case, on camera, with the audio in their own court. I don't trust anything they say because any time they do something atrocious, they try to cover it up, and even when it's revealed, they reward the guilty parties. I don't even want to keep going after that one. If it were me, if it were my daughter, I'd want to turn into John Wick. Iman Alhams, I'm sorry. I'm sorry they did that to you. I'm sorry my tax dollars have aided them in doing so. And most of all, I'm sorry I defended them and denied your plight and the plight of your people. I don't even want to keep going, but we must. Because I'm sick of people denying the atrocities of the chosen, of our greatest ally. I'm sick of men from my own denomination constantly running defense for the so-called chosen. Moving on. Operation Cast Lead. December 08 into January 09, there had been a ceasefire. It had held for several months until it didn't. Big surprise, I know, right? Who do you think broke the ceasefire? The same ones that keep breaking the current ceasefires, ruining any chance at peace between the US and Iran? In November, Israel ran a raid into Gaza and killed several Hamas members, and the whole thing spun up into a full air and ground assault. When it was done, around 1,400 Palestinians were dead, including more than 300 kids. Thousands of homes were destroyed. Water, sewage, power infrastructure wrecked. Schools and kindergartens leveled. Again, sounds like modern headlines, doesn't it? Because this nightmare has been going on for decades. So 1,400 Palestinians were killed after Israel broke the ceasefire. How many did Israel lose? Well, on the Israeli side, 13 dead, and several of those were from friendly fire. All of this is bad enough, but just like all the other stories, this one gets worse with 2 words. And they're kind of the focus here. White phosphorus. White phosphorus is a chemical that burns at around 1,500 degrees. The legitimate use is a smoke screen, but on a human body, well, it does not stop. It keeps burning down through skin, through muscle, to the bone, as long as there is oxygen to feed it. The wounds are catastrophic. Human Rights Watch put out a 71-page report on what Israel did with it. They called it Rain of Fire. And these are not vague accusations, they are addresses and dates. On January 15, 2009, Israeli forces airburst white phosphorus over Tel Ahawa, a crowded neighborhood in Gaza City, directly over apartment buildings where people were sheltering. It killed at least 4 members of one family. That same day, shells hit Al-Quds hospital run by the Palestinian Red Crescent. They set the hospital on fire and forced the evacuation of about 50 patients and 500 people who had taken refuge there. That same day, at least 3 shells struck the main United Nations UNRWA compound in Gaza City, where hundreds of civilians were sheltering. UNRWA, or UNRWA, is the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. The fires gutted 4 buildings and destroyed more than $3.5 million in medical supplies. And here's the part that kills the whole "it was an accident" defense. UNRWA officials said they were on the phone with Israeli officers all morning, watching the shells land closer and closer, begging them to stop, but the Israelis kept firing. 2 days later, on January 17th, Israeli forces fired white phosphorus over a UN school in Beit Lahia that was sheltering around 1,600 displaced people. It killed 2 and wounded 14. Human Rights Watch found no military justification for the obscurant excuse in those cases because Israeli forces were not even on the ground there. And they noted that the IDF had never used white phosphorus in Gaza before across years of incursions. So this was not a soldier in a panic. The pattern over days points to a policy. Human Rights Watch called it evidence of war crimes. Amnesty International called it a war crime. They burned a chemical over a hospital, a school, and a UN compound after being told children were underneath it. This event was so dark it could also have its own episode. Suffice it to say, for now, they burned this chemical over a freaking hospital. And this is also not history. It could also be found in today's headlines because, well, they never stopped. When Israel turned its guns on Lebanon after October 2023, the same chemical went up again. Human Rights Watch verified Israeli white phosphorus in at least 17 municipalities across South Lebanon, including 5 where it was airburst over populated residential areas, which is the unlawful use, for those keeping notes. Amnesty International investigated one strike on the border village of Dahaira on October 16, 2023, and said it should have been investigated as a war crime. An indiscriminate attack that injured at least 9 civilians, and the Washington Post traced the shells in that attack back to an American supplier. The Lebanese National Council for Scientific Research counted around 175 white phosphorus attacks on South Lebanon between October 2023 and July 2024. The fires burned through hundreds of hectares of farmland. Farmers are still testing their soil to find out if they can plant. And as recently as March of this year, 2026, Human Rights Watch geolocated fresh footage of Israel airbursting white phosphorus over residential neighborhoods in the town of Yamor. Rooftops on fire, the same chemical, the same methods, the same defense, which is to deny it and keep burning. The whole "Israel hasn't signed it" point will come up again, but the ones coping and seething because it's true of Protocol 3 of the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, the Specific Incendiary Weapons Treaty, but that doesn't save them for the same reason the cast thy bread defense fails. The unlawfulness here doesn't rest on Protocol 3. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty called it unlawful under the customary rules of international humanitarian law, the bedrock requirements to distinguish civilians from combatants and not launch indiscriminate attacks. Airbursting an incendiary over a residential neighborhood violates those regardless of which treaties anyone signed. So if some loser wants to listen and say they're not party to the incendiary treaty, my answer is the violation is the indiscriminate attack on civilians, and that rule binds everyone. So spare me. And let me be clear for the ones who still want to try and rationalize this. It's not the substance itself. White phosphorus is legal to possess and to use as a smokescreen. The crime is air bursting it over people. And Israel has done that time and time again. And they keep getting caught and they keep doing it even into the modern day because nothing ever happens. They airbursted over residential neighborhoods and hospitals, which is not only unlawful, it is disgusting, and it is evil, and I'm sick of pretending otherwise. I'm taking much longer than intended today. We keep bringing up the modern day. So let's just go there, shall we? 2018 to 2019. For about 18 months, tens of thousands of people in Gaza held weekly demonstrations along the fence. largely nonviolent, some skirmishes near the line. Injuries on the Israeli side were almost nothing across the entire period. I could find one Israeli fatality. On the other side, though, according to the Red Cross, over 13,000 Palestinians were shot with live ammunition in just the first year. A UN commission of inquiry, which Israel refused to cooperate with, big surprise, found reasonable grounds to believe Israeli forces committed war crimes. Snipers targeting people who were clearly marked, journalists in press vests, medics, children. There was also a pattern in the wounds. They loved the knees. Snipers shooting unarmed people in the legs, in the kneecaps. Around 160 injuries that ended in amputation, including on children. Over 1,000 more that needed reconstruction to save the limb. The commission report has the individual cases, and I'll give you a few, flatly, no embellishments. A student a kilometer from the fence shot in one leg, then the other. A press-vested journalist 1,800 meters back shot once in each knee, lost a leg. A boy handing out water to people choking on tear gas, shot from behind, lost a leg. An elderly woman who took off her veil so they would see she was an unarmed old woman helping the wounded. They shot her in the leg anyway. A teenager 300 meters out handing around sandwiches was shot not through the knee but through the face. Those people weren't storming anything. The commission's whole finding is that they were no imminent threat to anyone when they were shot. And the imbalance, 13,000 against 1, tells you the force was far from necessary. It was a choice. The choice, once again, terror. Even closer to modern day, and another one that makes my blood boil to my core. January 29th, 2024. A family of 7 trying to flee Gaza City in a small car. An IDF tank fires on them. 5 of the 7 family members are killed instantly. 2 survive. 5-year-old Hind Rajab and a teenage cousin, Layan. Layan calls the Palestinian Red Crescent. She says they're being targeted. The tank is getting closer. On the call, you can hear the car being torn apart by gunfire. The teenage girl is killed on the phone. The dispatcher calls back. 5-year-old Hind picks up. 5 years old. She says she's still there. She asks them, "Can't you come and get me?" 2 paramedics are sent. They get clearance from the IDF for the route. They go in a marked ambulance, lights, sirens. They reach the car, and then the ambulance is hit by a tank round, and both of them are killed. That too is recorded, and with their deaths died any sympathy I have remaining for this evil state and its evil army. Forensic Architecture, an investigative group, placed the tank about 20 meters away, close enough to see children in the first car, close enough to see the second car was a marked ambulance with its lights going. After the strikes, more than 300 rounds were fired into the car with the children in it. Hind did not survive. Of course, Israel first denied responsibility, then denied there were even troops in the area, which was of course proven to be false. Lies upon lies upon lies, yet again, and yet again, no charges, no apologies. The recordings of those calls are public. You can listen to a 5-year-old beg to be rescued. I am not going to play them. I've heard enough of them to know I don't want to hear them. I don't think I can unhear them. You can find them, and I think at least once in your life you should make yourself hear them, even in part, especially if you think for a second the blue and white chosen are always the good guys. Far from it. as I hope this episode has demonstrated. One more, because it's all I can freaking take, and it's the first modern atrocity I saw after learning about the history of the USS Liberty. That ironically set me free. 2024 to 2026. Sde Teiman. Sde Teiman is an Israeli base near Gaza that was turned into a detention site after October 7th. Another event that is episode-worthy, but I'll have to be even more careful with that one, assuming this one doesn't ruin me. What came out of Sde Teiman through Israeli whistleblowers, through Israeli physicians who worked there, through human rights groups, is a massive and disgusting record of severe abuse. Another warning, I won't get too graphic, but this one is dark. Detainees shackled and blindfolded for long stretches. Beatings, broken bones, medical neglect so bad that doctors described amputations from infected handcuff wounds. And then there's the large record of sexual violence against detainees. The flashpoint was a July 2024 incident caught on the facility's own camera. I've seen the footage, a detainee and a group of soldiers surrounding him, and severe internal injuries afterward. He had broken ribs, a punctured lung, and a rectal tear, to name a few of his injuries. 9 soldiers were detained, 5 were charged. And then watch what the state did with it, because this is the whole thesis in miniature. When those soldiers were arrested, a mob of Israeli activists, including sitting members of the Knesset, physically stormed the base, not to speak out against the atrocities, no, but in the defense of the men who did them. Not to protest the abuse, to protest the arrest of the abusers. The military's own top lawyer, the Advocate General, authorized the leak of the video so the public would understand how serious it was. Again, this was a major catalyst in my life. Her name is Yafat Tomer Yerushalmi. Sorry if I've mispronounced that. I've probably butchered a lot of names today. For leaking the footage that revealed the atrocities, did they reward her bravery? Yeah, right. They forced her out. They forced her to resign, and as if that weren't bad enough, now she's the one under criminal investigation. The one who exposed the monsters is the one they wish to punish. But 5 men were still arrested, right? Arrested and charged? So was her sacrifice worth it? What do you think? What do you think? March of 2026, the new military advocate general dropped the charges against all 5 monsters. I mean soldiers. Not because the crimes didn't happen, but because the government argued the leak had compromised a fair trial. The leak was the only reason anyone was going to find out they were doing these horrible things to people. The Prime Minister celebrated it. He called the case a blood libel because of course he did, another convenient label used to silence criticism. I'm tired. Let's be clear about the final scoreboard. The soldiers cleared back to duty. The lawyer who exposed it, prosecuted. Human rights groups, including Israeli ones like B'Tselem and Public Committee Against Torture in Israel, will tell you that out of hundreds of abuse complaints since October 7th, the system has produced almost no indictments at all. This was the one with video, and the video is why it died. This is so much worse and so much bigger. There is a claim going around right now, and it is even uglier, and you've probably seen it or heard about it in the news. Last month, in May of 2026, a New York Times columnist, Nicholas Kristof, published a piece on sexual abuse of Palestinian detainees, and inside was an allegation that dogs were used. Coached was the word, to violate prisoners. I'll leave it there. Israel is threatening to sue the New York Times or whatever. As of this week, the Times itself is reportedly reviewing Kristof's work over an unrelated disclosure problem because of course they are. I'm shocked that they let this through in the first place. As of right now, there is no forensic evidence I can point to, no whistleblower with a name just yet, so I won't stand here and tell you something is proven when it's not. Can I believe that it's happening? Oh, absolutely, given everything I've talked to you about so far, but because the people who want you to disbelieve all of it, the wells, Der Yassin, the death march, the countless children shot in the legs and face, the car with 300 rounds in it, and a 5-year-old girl who looked like Swiss cheese, their whole strategy is to find the one shakiest claim and knock it down and use it to wave away everything else, everything that's solid and well documented and provable. That's the entire move. It's what they tried to do with the Liberty. So I'm not going to hand them the shaky one dressed up as certain. I've given you plenty of proven ones, sourced many of them out of Israel's own archives and Israel's own records and Israel's own human rights organizations, and I'm going to let those stand on their own feet. The documented record does not need the disputed claim. It's already heavy enough. And there is one more thing in that story worth keeping, not as evidence of the dogs, but as evidence of something else. The word the Prime Minister reached for, both about Sde Teiman and about the Times piece, was, quote, blood libel. Notice how the term is functioning in these specific moments, how it's always functioning, it seems. It's being deployed by a head of state in real time to shut the door on documented abuse that his own military investigated and his own advocate general tried to bring to court. Just like anti-Semitism, blood libel is a phrase that exists to silence the discussion. It's pointed at video footage and forensic reports and x-rays of children's skulls with bullet holes. The phrase is not protecting anybody, it's being spent. And more people are noticing. Step back and look at the whole list at once, and you will see it is not really a list of separate events. It is one thing happening over and over and over for almost 80 years. It is not that crimes happen. Crimes happen in every country, every army, every era. That's not the story. The story is the accountability, or the total, structural, decade after decade absence of it. Run it back, the wells, never answered for, Der Yassin, still classified, the Death March, the man who signed it became frickin' prime minister and won a Nobel, Kafir Qasim, convicted then pardoned, and the state still won't formally name it. Sabra and Shatila, found responsible, then made prime minister. The murdered child in Rafah, the man was acquitted, promoted, and then got a payday. Hind Rajab and her family, it was denied, then lied about, then forgotten, like so many other atrocities committed by this protected class. Sde Teiman, charges dropped, soldiers back to duty, and the person prosecuted is the lawyer who showed us the footage. That is not a string of bad apples. A bad apple gets thrown out. This is a barrel built so that nothing ever gets thrown out. This is a system working exactly as designed, where the cost of these crimes to the people who commit them is consistently nothing, and often less than nothing, because the same names keep getting promoted. And that's what I'm actually saying goodbye to. Not a people. I've said it before, I'll say it again, and I'll have to say it again, because I'm no doubt going to get the label, oh, anti-Semitic, blood libel. Again, spare me. I'm saying goodbye to the framework that makes all of that garbage acceptable. The framework where a state can do this for 80 years and treat every objection as hatred. Where the documentation is in their own archives, and the answer still, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you? That framework has a name, and the name is political, not religious or ethnic. Zionism. And I am out. I am formally, on the record, out. Put me on whatever list I'm gonna be put on. If you knew me, knew my life, knew my love for people, knew my love for the Jewish people, you'd know the terms they will levy at me are meaningless, although they're making them more and more meaningless as they apply them to everyone and everything. Here's where I want to turn the camera around, because it would be cheap to spend an hour on someone else's crimes and never look in the mirror. None of this happens in a vacuum. It happens with American money. American weapons, American vetoes at the United Nations, American cover. I have come to believe something simple and uncomfortable. A state can only be this defiant for this long if it knows it is protected. And the protection is sadly us. It's you and me. Strip the funding, strip the diplomatic shield, and a lot of this becomes impossible to sustain because suddenly there's a price. So if you are an American and you have sat through this whole thing and felt sick, good, but do not let the feeling end as mere feeling. The lever you actually have is domestic. It is the funding, it is the politicians of both parties who keep that funding flowing because funding keeps flowing to them, and without a single condition attached to the money they keep sending to any of what you just heard, and I only scratched the surface. You do not have to hate anyone to want that to stop. You just have to decide you are no longer willing to pay for it. That is a completely ordinary moral position. It is the same position you would take about any other country on earth doing any of this stuff. The only thing that makes it controversial is that we have all been trained to flinch. I am done flinching. I am not going to tie a bow on this. I do not have one, and I would not trust it if I did. There are people who will hear this episode, and the only thing they will take from it is to call me a word. Anti-Semitic. That's fine. I've read the messages, the reviews, the comments. I know the word's coming. It no longer moves me, because I did not build this out of a feeling. It was built out of Israeli archives, Israeli courts, Israeli historians, and Israeli human rights groups. If that is hatred, then they will have to explain why their own people wrote it all down. Not to mention some of the civil strife happening in their own streets between, well, the Zionist Jews and the anti-Zionist Jews. I know that's weird for some to hear. Some don't even know that that's a thing. Oh yeah, it is. Again, I did not get into everything, far from it. I did not get to the school in 1970, the Egyptian primary school where their Air Force put in 5 bombs and killed 46 children. I didn't get into the countless journalists killed since October 7th. I didn't get into the starvation, the flotillas, the rest of the long catalog of atrocities and war crimes that they're adding to as we speak. This was never the whole list. What I want you to leave with is not despair, it is the ledger. Just the fact that the ledger exists, and that it is real, and that nobody has paid it, and that some of the bill is ours, it's mine. Sit with it. Stop looking away from it. And then when you are ready, do the small, ordinary thing that is actually within your reach about it. That's the show today, folks. Take care of each other. Please share this episode. Not to grow the show. I told you I'm not doing that today. I want to spread awareness. I want to give someone else courage to speak out. I told you, ask yourself who you're not allowed to talk about, and you'll find out who's pulling the strings. Thank you for listening to this heavy and risky installment of Toaster Talk. Thank you as well to the controversial Mr. Quigley for your list. Though we do not agree on many things, we can agree silence on these matters is no longer a possibility. I must speak up while I still have the freedom to do so, because in some states, even with our quote-unquote freedom of speech, we already can't talk about our greatest ally. You can criticize your own country. You can't criticize theirs. You can boycott manufacturers from your own country, but it's actually illegal to boycott theirs in many states. Google it if you don't believe me. I didn't look it up to add it to my little notes, and I'm not going to now. Again, I must speak up while I still have the freedom to do so. This is not an ally we should continue to stick our neck out for any longer, not until there is severe and serious change. It is no longer an ally I will stick my neck out for. And to the Palestinians, again, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I love the Palestinian people. I love the people of Lebanon. I love the Jewish people. I'm tired of seeing people in the Middle East get blown up. It's just rarely who we're told doing the blowing up. I do love the Jewish people again, but the political state of Israel is becoming all the things it once claimed to hate and so vehemently be against. I am against their current regime. I pray for their repentance. I pray for their salvation. Nothing they have done is outside of the forgiveness available in Christ, in the Christ they have still such hatred for. I don't think a single Jewish person would listen to this or make it all the way through. Heck, I've already lost tons of Calvary Chapel people. Again, I'm a Calvary Chapel pastor, and many have bailed on me because of my stance recently, because of things like this, and if anything, I've sealed the nail in my own coffin. But I still love the Jewish people. Jesus loves them. One day I believe they will see that. They will look upon him whom they pierced. Folks, again, that's all I got. Thank you for listening to the Dancing Toaster. Don't consume toasters. And pray Mossad does not consume me. I love you. I'm out.
Government officials insist that this an isolated incident and it's for him. Okay? Who don't perhaps